Shall we stand for God Bless America, sung by our own first-year student, Ayla Brown, class of 2010.
God bless America. Let not alone stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home.
Welcome, class of 2010, and our transfer students. We have met in sevenths all summer, and here we are for the first time all together. We congratulate you as a class of first-year students. Our greeting is from all of us, faculty and staff, alumni, and your fellow student body, the upper class students who have greeted us and are seated behind you. You will add to the greatness of this fine university, and hopefully we will be a better university because you have joined us and have been a part of our family. Yes, God bless America. We are not a perfect nation, but a very good one, a model of democratic institutions and a beacon of freedom to the oppressed. Our forefathers and mothers came looking for opportunity or the promise of a good life. Some of our ancestors came in shackles, torn from their villages and families. The road to nationhood demanded great sacrifice and devotion. Human rights and the dignity of all, written in the original founding documents, are only gradually realized. And even today, the task is still before us. You must now prepare yourselves to take the lead. Your 4 years will be a preparation, and shortly the task will be upon you. The development of both your intellectual gifts and your moral character will be essential to the task. Our hope is that you will lead in big and small places, in every day and in pivotal moments. In those places and at those times, the choices will be difficult and the consequences significant. You have read Dr. Cole's book, The Lives of Moral Leaders. The task is to make these choices in ways that express a deep moral commitment to the best ideals of human dignity and just community for all. Peace, whether in private relationships or in international communities, will always be a task before you. To do this good work is a ministry of healing, generosity, forgiveness, and love. You will need courage to assume the moral leadership that will be required of you in all these instances. Our hope is that someday a similar book will be written and that you might be identified as one who has led this world in the good work to build communities of justice, of peace, of love and compassion. In this way, God's kingdom will come. We are privileged to have Senator McCain among us. He will share with us his thoughts about leadership and service. Senator McCain has heard these calls clearly. In his own life, he has responded to them. As first-year students, you have just taken a ceremonial walk through the campus, a walk that you will retrace upon commencement on your way to receive your degree at graduation. You are urged to grow in the spirit of Jesuit education. Learn to be attentive, reflective, and loving, so that when you walk in the same procession 4 years hence from now, you will be men and women who are wise and good-hearted and ready to make a difference in the world. It is our hope that in the 4 years that pass between this convocation and your graduation, you will become what William Conrad would call folks who walk when walking has to be done. Ultimately, we hope that you will have begun seeking what Dorothy Day might ask, wants doing in this world. The best way to get to that point of discernment is to engage in the act of conversation. And so the first-year academic convocation is an event, but it is also a discussion, a literary experience centered around the vital issues put forth in the first-year experience program called Conversations in the First Year. Make no mistake, Boston College expects a great deal from you, its newest members. You are now our fellow leaders, and we will call you to struggle, to attend, to reflect, and to love in the course of your daily lives while you are with us. It is our mission, then, to provide you with the guidance, with some of the questions which beg solutions, neither easy nor myopic, to begin you on your path, to aid you in setting this world aflame. Let me now share with you our President, Father William P. Leahy of the Society of Jesus.
Thank you for being here tonight and participating in this third annual first-year academic convocation. The purpose of this event is to offer to you, the members of the Boston College class of 2010, both inspiration and challenge. Do that as you start your time at Boston College. Thousands of students have preceded you at Boston College since this institution was founded in 1863. Like you, they went through the process of adjusting to college, making friends, and developing their talents in this community of learners and scholars. As you enter into that process, I ask you to remember that you bring significant talents with you, that we need you to contribute to our campus life. Boston College is an institution of higher education committed to intellectual excellence and religious commitment. It is a caring place, reflecting its Jesuit and Catholic heritage. It is committed not only to helping you develop your gifts and interests, but also encouraging you to share them with those around you. We want you to be more and more thoughtful, compassionate human beings, respectful of others, and aware of your obligation as members of this community to live responsibly, to do your part to make our world better, and to help make God more present in our day. As students here, you will have many opportunities to explore who you are, who you want to be in the future, and to make choices that will set patterns for the rest of your lives. Tonight, we are very fortunate to have a speaker who offers many lessons for you to consider. He is a graduate of the United States Naval Academy, the senior senator from the state of Arizona, and a person known around the world for his integrity, physical and moral courage, and honesty. He has a clear set of values that have long guided his life. He is respected not only in America, but around the world. You have heard, and you will continue to hear throughout your 4 years at Boston College, that this institution strives to graduate men and women who will employ their education and talents in service of others. Our speaker is such a person. And what powerful example and challenge he offers us. We are privileged to have him on campus tonight to address the class of 2010. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Senator John McCain.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Mr. President. Thank you all for your warm welcome. It's far nicer than the one I received at the Scottsdale Rotary Club last week, where the guy said, "Here's the latest dope from Washington, Senator John McCain." So I appreciate that introduction, Mr. President. Recently, I was out in California doing an event with the Governor Schwarzenegger. He and I have many similar attributes, as you can tell. There was a bunch of protesters out there, and this guy was carrying a sign, great big guy, said, "Say, anybody ever tell you look a lot like Senator John McCain?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Doesn't it just make you mad as hell?" So thank you for your kind introduction. I congratulate you as you embark in the next 4 years in this wonderful institution. I congratulate you on your acceptance, and I know that you are entering in to one of the most meaningful, enjoyable, and certainly the most formative years of your life. And I congratulate you, and I'm honored for the privilege of addressing you this evening and participating in this great tradition. In gratitude for the opportunity, I will keep my prepared remarks brief so that I can spend the greater part of this time attempting to answer any questions, comments, or insults you might have for me. I've found over the years that my audiences are rarely as impressed with my wisdom and eloquence as I hope they would be. They prefer to question, interrogate, or with any luck, provoke me into revealing greater information about my views, purposes, and mental acuity than I intended to disclose, or at least salvage a little entertainment from the evening in the event my responses are not as thoughtful as my staff had hoped they would be. So with your indulgence, I'll offer a few of my own thoughts on this Convocation's theme: your abiding commitment to a life well lived, a life of genuine moral, and I hope public leadership, before turning the floor over to you. 17 years ago, in the first days of the last days of the Soviet Empire, a young Czech student stood before 1 million of his countrymen while 200,000 Soviet troops still occupied his country, and trembling with emotion, read a manifesto that declared a new day for the captive peoples of Eastern Europe. He began that new day with borrowed words when he proclaimed, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. For all the terrible problems that still afflict humanity, for all the mistakes America has made in the past, and the imperfections we must still confess, I cannot imagine another nation's history will ever so profoundly affect the progress of the human race. That's not a boast, but an expression of faith in the American creed and in the men and women who understood what history expected of us. Theodore Roosevelt is one of my political heroes. The strenuous life was his definition of Americanism, a celebration of America's pioneer creed. The virtues that inspired our self-confidence, that bound us by sacred duty to suffer hardship and risk danger to protect the values of our civilization and impart them to humanity. We cannot sit huddled within our borders, he warned, and avow ourselves merely an assemblage of well-to-do hucksters who care nothing for what happens beyond. His Americanism was not fidelity to a tribal identity, nor was it limited to a sentimental attachment to our amber waves of grain or Purple Mountain's majesty. He exalted our morals and political values of a nation where the people are sovereign, recognizing not only the inherent justice of self-determination, that freedom empowered individuals to choose their own destiny, but that it empowers us to choose a common destiny. And for Roosevelt, that common destiny surpassed material gain and self-interest. Our freedom and industry must aspire to more than the acquisition of luxury, and we must live out the true meaning of freedom and accept that we have duties to others, duties to ourselves, and we can shirk neither. Some critics in his day and ours saw Roosevelt's patriotism as only flag-waving chauvinism, not all that dissimilar to old-world allegiances that incited one people to subjugate another and plunged whole continents into war. But they didn't see the universality of the ideals that formed his creed. A few years ago, I read an account of an Irishman's attempt to make the first crossing of the Antarctic on foot. In August 1914, Sir Ernest Shackleton placed an advertisement in a London newspaper. It read, "Men wanted for hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success." 28 men answered the ad and began a 22-month trial of wind, ice, snow, and grim endurance. The deprivation these men suffered are unimaginable. They spent 4 months marooned on a desolate ice-covered island before they were rescued by Shackleton himself. They endured 3 months of polar darkness and were forced to shoot their sled dogs for food. Their mission failed, but they recorded an epic of courage and honor that far surpassed the accomplishment that exceeded their grasp. When they returned to England, most of them immediately enlisted in World War I. Years later, Shackleton looked back on the character of his shipmates. He had had the privilege of witnessing 1,000 acts of unselfish courage, and he understood the greater glory that they had achieved. "In memories we were rich," he wrote. "We had pierced the veneer of outside things." I thought when I read it that in that memorable phrase was the Roosevelt code, to pierce the veneer of outside things, to strive for something more ennobling than the luxuries that privilege and wealth have placed within easy reach. For the memories of such accomplishments are fleeting, attributable as they are to the fortunate circumstances of our birth, and reflect little credit on our character or our nations. We are not a perfect country. We are not a perfect country. Prosperity and power might delude us into thinking we have achieved that distinction. But inequities and challenges unforeseen a mere generation ago command every good citizen's concern and labor. But what we have achieved in our brief history is irrefutable proof that a nation conceived in liberty will prove stronger and more enduring than any nation ordered to exalt the few at the expense of the many, or made from a common race or culture to preserve traditions that have no greater attribute than longevity. As blessed as we are, no nation complacent in its greatness can long sustain it. We are an unfinished nation. We must take our place in the enterprise of renewal, giving in our time our counsel, our labor, and our passion to the enduring test of making our nation and this world a better place. We must prove again, as those who came before us proved, that a people free to act in their own interests will perceive their interests in an enlightened way. We'll live as one nation in a kinship of ideals and make of our power and wealth a civilization for the ages, a civilization in which all people share in the promise and responsibilities of freedom. We must represent to the world, even in perilous times when we confront enemies who share none of our values, who scorn the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that ennoble our history, we must always show the world that those values are dearer to us than anything. They are dearer to us than life itself. We need not and we must not sacrifice our values in this war against terrorism. We cannot win the war if we do, and we will lose something far more precious: our political soul. That's why I believe that even though captured al-Qaeda members would never accord us any protection of our rights, on the contrary, they despise all human rights, even though they are in fact evil. We must adhere in our treatment of them by the standards of our values, not theirs. Because, my friends, the way we treat them is not about them, it's about us. That's why a young Czech student used the majestic prose of our Declaration of Independence to claim his own rights from a brutal dictatorship. No other country can claim such moral leadership, and we must never, never sacrifice it. All our lives are a struggle against selfishness. All my life, I've stood a little apart from institutions I willingly joined. It just felt natural to me, but if my life had shared no common purpose, it wouldn't have amounted to much more than eccentricity. There is no honor or happiness in just being strong enough to be left alone. I've made plenty of mistakes, and I have many regrets, but only when I have separated my interests from my country's are those regrets profound and lasting. That's the honor and the privilege of public service in a nation that isn't just land and ethnicity, but an idea and a cause. Any benefit that ever accrued to me on occasions in my public life when I perceived my self-interest as unrelated to the nation I served and unresponsive to the demands of my conscience have been as fleeting as pleasure and as meaningless as an empty gesture. In America, our rights come before our duties. We're a free people, and among our freedoms is the liberty to not sacrifice for our birthright. Yet those who claim their liberty, but not their duty to the civilization that ensures it, live a half-life, having indulged their self-interest at the cost of their self-respect. The richest man or woman, the most successful and celebrated Americans possess nothing of importance if their lives have no greater object than themselves. They may be masters of their own fate, but what a poor destiny it is that claims no higher cause than wealth or fame. Should we claim our rights and leave to others the duties to the nation that protects them, whatever we gain for ourselves will be of little lasting value. It will build no monuments to virtue, claim no honored place in the memory of posterity, offer no worthy summons to other nations. Success, wealth, celebrity gain, and kept for private interest is a small thing. It makes us comfortable, eases the material hardship our children will bear, purchases a comfortable, fleeting regard for our lives, yet not the self-respect that in the end matters most. But sacrifice for a cause greater than your self-interest, and you invest your lives with the imminence of that cause, your self-respect assured. When I was a young man, I thought glory was the highest ambition, and that all glory was self-glory. My parents tried to teach me otherwise, as did the Naval Academy. But I didn't understand the lesson until later in life when I confronted challenges I never expected to face. In that confrontation, I discovered that I was dependent on others to a greater extent than I had ever realized, but neither they nor the cause we served made any claims on my identity. On the contrary, they gave me a larger sense of myself than I had had before, and I am a better man for it. I discovered that nothing is more liberating in life than to fight for a cause that encompasses you, but is not defined by your existence alone. And that has made all the difference, my friends, all the difference in the world. Very far from here, and long ago, I served with men of extraordinary character, honorable men, strong, principled, wise, compassionate, and loving men. Better men than I, in more ways than I can number. They were often treated cruelly. For several years, they were tortured by our captors. Some of them were beaten terribly, and worse, some were killed. Sometimes they were tortured for information that could be used to help our enemy fight the war, and sometimes for other prisoners, for information they could use against other prisoners. Most often, they were tortured to compel them to make statements criticizing our country and the cause we had been asked to serve. Many times, their captors would briefly suspend the torture and try to persuade them to make a statement by promising that no one would hear what they said or know that they had sacrificed their convictions. Just say it, and we will spare you any more pain, they promised, and no one will know. But the men I had the honor of serving with always had the same response: I will know, I will know. Those days were long ago, but not so long ago that I have forgotten their purpose and their reward. This is your moment to make history. This is your chance to pierce the veneer of outside things and to build upon the accomplishment of America's storied past. I wish you more than good luck. I wish you the most important thing in the world. I wish that you always hear the voice in your own heart when you face hard decisions in your life, to hear it say to you again and again until it drowns out every other thought: I will know, I will know, I will know. Thank you, and God bless you. Now, thank you very much. Now where do they go to ask questions? I think we're supposed to have a microphone around here. Yes? No? Yes. There's a microphone over there, and we have one microphone. Oh. And we have a microphone in the back. So if you'll just raise your hand, right over here, if you might come over there, and then we'll go back and forth, okay? Raise your hand there, and he'll come to you, so we'll be ready to ask the questions. I've never done this before, so we'll go. Yes, sir.
All right, be a little off top.
I hear you. I hear you.
All right.
Go ahead. We hear you.
In the next few years, I just was wondering if
I did hear you, and the question was, is in the next few years, would I be contemplating running for the presidency of the United States? I'd like to start out by I'd like to begin by asking your sympathy for the families of the state of Arizona, because a guy named Barry Goldwater from Arizona ran for President of the United States, a guy named Morris Udall from Arizona ran for President of the United States, a guy named Bruce Babbitt from Arizona ran for President of the United States, I from Arizona ran for President of the United States. Arizona may be the only state in America where mothers don't tell their children that someday they can grow up and be president of the United States. So I ask your sympathy for them. I once had a friend of mine who served in the House of Representatives. As you know, all members of the House of Representatives think that senators are snobs, and they're right. And he once said, if you're a United States senator, unless you are under indictment or detoxification, you automatically consider yourself a candidate for president of the United States. So, and one more, some of you may recall, and probably not many of you don't, but in the last campaign there was some question about me being vice president of the United States. It wasn't clear which party. And I was on the Jay Leno show, and he said, wow, Senator, what's this about you being vice president? And I said, you know, I spent all those years in a North Vietnamese prison camp, kept in the dark, fed scraps. Why the hell would I want to do that all over again? So, I'll let you know. If there's not a hand up back there, we will go to, right, could you come down here? If anyone in the back is still awake, you may raise your hand, and there's a kind gentleman with a microphone there for you.
I was wondering.
We can hear you. You can't hear you, but we can hear you, so speak into it.
What was your first year of college like?
First year where?
College.
It was at the Naval Academy, and as you know, the Naval Academy is a military institution. I did not take very well to the instructors nor those who were senior to me, so I amassed a very significant number of demerits. I don't think I had the most demerits of anyone who ever attended the Naval Academy, but I certainly think I'm still in the top 10. I resented the discipline, and it took me some years before I understood that their intentions were honorable. So, but I wanted very badly to be a Navy pilot. That's something that I had always wanted to do, and so I stuck it out. I wasn't very good at some of the technical training there at the Naval Academy. I've always loved history. I've loved English. I read all the time. None of those are very much in demand at a school like the Naval Academy. So I enjoyed it. My friends, really the people that I know best and love most are those that I was in prison with. And still, I hear from them literally every day. One of them calls or writes to give me my marching orders, and with a vast improvement of my dismal performance in the United States Senate. But that was. She'll come over to you right after this one. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am. It's off. This time it's off. This is not a technical institution either. This microphone is brought to you courtesy of the Democratic National Committee.
What would you say to young people today who don't know who to believe in politics? Like, they hear, we see...
Like what? What would I say to young people as to who they should believe in politics? I would say don't believe the negative advertising which inundates your television sets and your radio and your documents, that various ones that you see. Almost all the men and women that I know who serve in public office are honorable people. Now, we may have significant political differences and philosophical differences, and we should. There should be a continuous and passionate philosophical debate in America so we can determine what's best for America. But what I regret today, and what you've been subjected to, is the impugning of character, integrity, and patriotism on the part of someone who doesn't agree with you. Don't do that. Don't do that. You have two senators here in the state of Massachusetts that are very different political philosophy than I am. I am very good friends with both. They're both decent and honorable people that I respect a great deal. We disagree, we clash, but I respect them. And I'll tell you, both of them work very hard for the people of Massachusetts, and that's our job. Now, the problem, I think, part of the problem today in the Congress of the United States is that we have fallen prey to some evils as far as spending is concerned, and it's made some good people do bad things. You may have seen in the paper 2 days ago a congressman from Ohio pled guilty to corruption of ripping off Native Americans, amongst others, of a great deal of money. And then, not too long ago, there was a congressman from California who's now in prison, who, with coordination of a crooked lobbyist, took tens of millions of your tax dollars and put them in his pocket. And so we have to clean that up. Because the most important thing to me, if you leave here tonight with anything that I say to you, is that at least consider being involved in political campaigns, in the political process. If there's one thing I worry about in the future of America, it's not enough young people getting involved and willing to run for public office. Many young people today come up to me and say, with all this negative advertising and all these attacks, why should I expose myself to that? And I don't have a good answer for them. That's why we should demand that political campaigns be lifted up from a much higher level than it is today. And there are many, many ways. There are many, many ways, as you all know and have been exposed to serving. I believe in the political process, so therefore I encourage you not only to be involved in running for in the campaigns themselves, but I hope all of you from time to time will consider running or seeking public office. We need more young and fresh blood in our political process, and we need it rather badly. Yes, sir.
Senator McCain, first of all, it's just an honor to have you here today with us. I was wondering, just as an observer of the political process, I know there's such a difference between the far right and the moderate right, and the far left and the moderate left. And personally, I've been a little bit disillusioned with the whole two-party system. I was wondering what your opinions were. I feel like for so many people in America today, the two presidential candidates that arise every year, neither of whom bring up, say, half of somebody's real viewpoints on an issue. I was wondering about your opinion on that.
I'm sure that many of you know that I lost in my effort to get the Republican nomination, and after I was defeated, I slept like a baby. Sleep 2 hours, wake up and cry. Sleep 2 hours, wake up. I think that it's very possible that you are about to see something happen in American politics. I don't know if it's now or some time from now, but what we're seeing is a dramatic increase in voter registration that are registering as independent. In my home state of Arizona, 10 years ago, about 9% of the voter registration was independent. Today it's 29%. So we are seeing some of that dissatisfaction that you voiced being manifested in the independent voter registration. Without getting too esoteric, our system, unlike the European system, is designed for two parties and two parties only. When a guy named Ross Perot ran some years ago as a billionaire, as you know, he had to spend $100 million just to get on the ballot in these states because it's designed that way. And so I think it depends, very frankly, on your generation. If the approval rating of Congress remains in the 20s, and if enough Americans continue to think that the country's on the wrong track, I think you could see a lot of things happen in American politics. I hope not. I hope that our two traditional parties will become more responsive and more attuned to your hopes and dreams and aspirations. I hope that they will be aware that you're going to vote. And that's an important thing. If they think you are going to vote, they're going to pay a lot more attention to your issues. But there's a lot of things happening in America today, as you know. I am an optimist about America. But right now, there's a lot of turmoil in America, both politically and socially. And I think that it's very difficult to predict exactly what those outcomes are going to be. Oh, yes, sir. Here comes the runner.
Coming from the great state of Arizona myself, I know what a pressing issue, the issue of illegal immigration is. I was wondering what you are currently doing to address that issue and how you see the laws here in America changing in the future towards immigration.
Well, I've been asked by the Arizona Chamber of Commerce to mention that during your Christmas vacation, the temperature in Phoenix will be 75 degrees. You're welcome out to spend some time with us. We take all plastic, and we'd be very happy to see you this winter. We have so little water, the trees chase the dogs, but other than that, it's a wonderful place to live. Tell me again. Illegal immigration is a hot-button issue in America today. I was so busy trying to think of a joke, I forgot the question. Pretty soon I'm going to hide my own Easter eggs. Thank you. Illegal immigration is a very, very hot-button issue in America today. There are many Americans that are literally scared by the influx of illegal immigrants into this country, and particularly amongst our Republican base. I'm speaking as a Republican, people are disturbed. You know, from coming from the state of Arizona, we have the biggest problem because more than 50% of all the people who enter America illegally come across the Arizona-Mexico border. And our borders are broken, and they have to be fixed, and it's a national security issue, particularly since 9/11. We have to fix our borders. We all understand that, and we have to spend what it takes, and I can guarantee you that there are ways to make our border much more secure, not so much with walls, with high-tech stuff like UAVs and sensors and stuff like that. But my dear friends, I do not believe that that's the only answer. I believe, as does the president, as does many people from my part of the country, believe you have to have a temporary worker program to do some of the work that Americans won't do. And we also have 12 or 11 million people, depending on who you talk to, who are already here illegally. What do? Round them all up? How are you going to round up 11 or 12 million people? I don't know how. Maybe somebody can explain that to me. And maybe some should be sent home that came here recently. But I also believe that some of them who have been here many years ought to be allowed to have a path to citizenship, and one that's arduous and rigorous, and you pay a very big penalty because they did break our laws by coming here illegally. But I don't think you can just say we've sealed our borders, now we're going to do nothing about all of these millions of people who are here illegally. And could I just remind you of one additional factor that we sometimes forget? The reason why America is great today, the reason why we're the vital nation today, the reason why we continue to be the envy of the world is because of the continuous infusion of fresh blood and vitality into America, which has made this nation great, and don't ever forget it. Of course we have to address Of course we have to address this issue of a broken border. It is a national security issue. But let's denigrate the contribution, the enormous contribution that immigrants to this country have made that has kept America great. I know that many of you have vacationed in Europe. Many of those countries are a bit stagnant. They don't have the economic growth that we do. They don't have the Bill Gates and the inventiveness and the innovation that makes America lead. One of the reasons is they haven't had this infusion, this continuous infusion of fresh blood into their countries. So we should cherish the fact that we are nations of immigrants, but at the same time, we obviously have to have a process where people can come here legally so that every person all over the world has the same opportunity to come here, not just by virtue of living closest to our border. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for coming, Senator McCain.
It's a pleasure.
A few questions ago, you mentioned philosophical differences, and I want to just jump off on that point. As you know, Massachusetts is one of the only states in America to legally recognize relationships between homosexual couples. As you also probably know, many members of your party have gone to great efforts to try to roll back those protections. I was wondering what you, as an individual, will be looking forward to make sure that homosexual couples have the same privileges or equivalent privileges as heterosexual couples.
Obviously, everyone is entitled to their view on this issue. I believe that there is a unique status of a marriage between a man and a woman. That does not mean that people who have entered into partnerships should not be granted certain abilities and capabilities to honor that relationship. But I repeat, I do believe in the sanctity of a marriage between man and woman. But let me also add, I voted against the amendment to the Constitution that was on the floor of the Senate to make heterosexual marriage unique, or outlaw gay marriage, whichever one you describe it. But I voted against it because I'm a federalist. Federalism means that states should make their own decisions. You began your statement that here in the state of Massachusetts, there's a certain status. I believe that Arizona should decide on their status within their state, and so should Oklahoma and every other state, and rather than amend the Constitution of the United States for such a purpose. The people of Arizona, the people of Massachusetts have made their decision. The people of Arizona will make their decision. And certainly I think that that's a more appropriate way to address the issue. And could we come down? Yes, sir. Yeah, go down there and then, yes, sir, up top. No, yes, right to him.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. I have one question. What would you say to the average American who has really lost hope in the direction of our country and the direction of the world, seeing all the violence that is in the media today?
I would say to them that these are exceedingly difficult times, and I also believe that we are in a struggle. I really do believe that there are forces in the world that have taken an honorable religion, a very honorable religion, and perverted it in an evil fashion. And these people are in opposition to everything that we stand for and believe in. Freedom, liberty, rights of women, whatever it is. And this is a hard struggle. But I would also point out that in the late 1940s and early 1950s in the world, we had the Soviet Union joined with China in a huge threat. I mean, communism was a threat, and they had nuclear weapons, and they were acting aggressively throughout the world. We fought a war in Korea just to keep the communists, not roll them back, but to keep them from taking the Korean Peninsula. There's been difficult times in American history, but I would also point out to you, why is it that we have a problem with illegal immigration? Because people don't like America? Because they don't want to come here? It's because we are still the shining city on a hill. And I really believe that we have generations of young Americans in this room and in the military and in the Peace Corps and in AmeriCorps and in volunteer organizations all over America today that are far superior to my generation. And I say that with humility. You are the future of America. You are imbued with ideals and ambitions that frankly are higher and in some ways better than my generation. So when I get depressed, when I see of the latest 60 people die in Baghdad in a suicide bombing, Afghanistan, the Taliban kills 4 British soldiers, you see it all. I get a little depressed too. But then I have the privilege of meeting the next generation of Americans and the next generation of leaders, and all my faith in the future of America is restored. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, you do have it. Yes, no. I see you.
Senator McCain.
Yes.
An honor to be here. Just going to back up my question. It is relevant, I promise. With my first political motion in life was when I heard you speak in my living room in high school about your principles related to the abuse of prisoners of war. Since then, I've followed you with varying pride, but that's a good thing. It means I still have something to do with my life. At the same time, it is heartening to hear you speak tonight about those principles again and to make sure that you prioritize them very frequently. I want to ask you to honor the people in this room by following through on your general statement with some specifics on what tactics you intend to pursue to that end, and in the next 6 months to a year, and secondly, how successful you feel they will be. Thank you.
Right now, we are in a major confrontation in the Congress and with the President. And a confrontation I did not seek, and I hope we can get resolved as quickly as possible. And it would take more than your attention span to describe to you exactly what this is all about, but it really is boiled down to this. There's a thing called the Geneva Conventions, which were signed 57 years ago, which is a compact that 155 nations have joined in as far as the treatment of people who are kept prisoner. The administration would like to change that Geneva Convention so that additional interrogation techniques can be used. Now, the administration says these would not violate the cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment. We feel very strongly that those conventions should not be changed, because suppose that an American is captured by the Iranians and the Iranians decide that they'll have their interpretation of the Geneva Conventions and decide to mistreat a prisoner. I hold no brief for Al-Qaeda. They are the most evil, terrible people in the world. There's a special place in hell for many of them. But the fact is, this is not about them, as I said in my remarks. It's about us. I got a letter from General Colin Powell. Everyone in this room knows who General Colin Powell is, and I'd just like to quote, "The world is beginning to doubt the moral basis of our fight against terrorism. To redefine Common Article 3, that's the Geneva Conventions, would add to those doubts. Furthermore, it would put our own troops at risk. Now that's the view of America's greatest living soldier, General Colin Powell. And so that's what I hope we can prevail on. And then after you finish, I'm going to the beautiful young lady with the red hair. You're kind of ugly yourself. Go ahead.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
For those of us who
It's a joke, please.
don't,
Please.
no offense taken.
Thank you.
For those of us who, through our time here at BC and then our years after Boston College, for those of us who want to follow in the footsteps of a politician such as yourself, what kind of advice or recommendations can you give us for the next decade, 2 decades of our life?
Thank you. Would you hand back? First of all, I think one of the most important things you could do, seriously, is if there's a campaign going on, if you support a candidate or you believe in one of the issues, like a ballot initiative or one of the issue we were just talking about before, if you get involved and you learn about the issue and you learn about the political process, believe me, there's a lot of downsides to a political campaign, but there's really not much in life that is as exciting. And one of the great things about being in this political arena is you get to meet people and be exposed to people that you never otherwise would. It's wonderful. I mean, it's a great experience to go knock on somebody's door and say, hi, I'm running for, or I'm supporting Proposition 100, and I hope you'll sign this petition, and I'd be glad to talk to you about it. And then, of course, stand for office yourself. I'm trying to remember how old Jack Kennedy was when he was elected President of the United States. I'm sure that somebody here does. I think it was 42, if I recall. You don't have to be old and senile like me to run. So I think it's a matter of involvement. And finally, study. Study history and study the issues. And study because there's very few issues that are new in this world. Believe it or not, there are very, very few issues. They seem to repeat themselves over and over again, and you know the old line about those who ignore the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them. And as I said before, I hope you'll get involved. But I also think there's other things to do. Habitat for Humanity. There's so many things that we can do to help people in this world, and that, I think, is enriching and ennobling. Yes? Do you have it? Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you think the peacekeepers should remain in Danforth?
The peacekeepers?
Should remain in Danforth. Darfur.
Darfur. Okay, Darfur.
Sorry.
My friends, I'm glad that question was asked, because I do think that if there's a cause right now you could be involved in, if there's a cause tonight, that you could be involved in, it's Darfur. Today, 200,000. Already 200,000 innocent men, women, and children, mainly women and children, have been massacred in Darfur. 15 million lives are in danger. They have these militias called Janjaweed. They come into these towns where these poor, impoverished people are, and they kill, and they rape, and they maim, and it's a national and international disgrace. And the fact that our international institutions have not acted is one of the great disgraces of history. And I'm sure that many of you have seen the film Hotel Rwanda and also know what happened in Rwanda. You know what happened in Rwanda. You know what happened in a town called Srebrenica in Bosnia? A Dutch peacekeeper was there, and the Serbian guy came in, and I still remember the picture, they clicked glasses while the Serbs went out and ethnically cleansed every man, woman, and child in Srebrenica. The Dutch still haven't gotten over it. It wasn't their fault. It was because the UN went in and didn't have the capacity or the ability to stop it. And after Srebrenica, we said never again. And after Rwanda, we said never again. And after the Holocaust, we said never again. I'm very much afraid, my dear friends, that after Darfur, we may have to say never again. And it's critical, and it's time sensitive, and we need to act. And I know there's not a person in this room that wouldn't do whatever is necessary to try to save those innocent people that are at the mercy of some of the most ruthless people on earth. Thank you for the question. There's two more questions. Yeah. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Well, the last question. I appreciate your being here, and I also appreciate your concern for terrorism. I think it's a concern that we all share. But I do have a question about the means that we have used to date in order to wage the war against terrorism. I think that we all agree. That, and history would suggest that stability is the key to decreasing terrorism. While at the top of terrorist networks, there are ideologues. Generally, the fighters, the day-to-day people are folks who are poor, they're folks who are dislocated. And my question is, over the course of the last couple of years, I think that our strategies have literally set the world aflame and have literally created the potential for many, many more terrorists. And I'm wondering, what can we do to right our course? What can we do to create stability, which will engender peace and prosperity for Americans as well as people throughout the world?
I think we would agree that America is the most generous nation in the world. And we have traveled around the world and fought in defense of other people's freedom. And American blood has been spilled in every corner of the world. And we've not sought, certainly not in the 20th century or the 21st century, to acquire any additional land material gain. But we are facing a challenge, and you are pretty well on target when you talk about the causes of it. And this is why it's going to be a long struggle. In America, we have two sets of principles that guide the conduct of national security policy. One is called Wilsonian principles, and that is our dedication to freedom and democracy every place in the world. And the other is realpolitik, where we have to act in America's interest and do things in America's interest. In the Cold War, when we were against the Soviet Union, we made friends with some pretty bad people because they weren't on the Soviet Union side. By the way, we paid a price for that in some parts of the world. But as long as there are young men, particularly, but also young women, all over the Middle East, standing on street corners with no hope, no job, no opportunity, no future, no chance for a better life, they'll be taken off the streets into these madrasas, these schools where they are taught this radical, perverted form of Islamic extremism, which makes them want to not only hate, kill, and want to destroy America, but they're willing to sacrifice their lives in the process of taking the lives of others. That's why when you have the conditions, such as we have in the Middle East, where there is nothing else for them to do but embrace this terrible evil, they are going to be coming, and they're going to be coming after us. The long run is a better life and a better future and better opportunity. You know, we have a very large Muslim community around Detroit, a very large Muslim community, as I think you know. We don't have problems there because people have come to this country and they've been able to educate their kids and they've been able to have better lives and they have a better future. Outside Paris, they live in ghettos and every once in a while they come out and burn 1,000 cars. So the key to this is the fulfillment of the basic founding of the United States of America, and it's long and it's hard and it's difficult, and I wish I could tell you otherwise. And we have to be very careful what kind of regimes we support that don't allow that kind of progress, particularly in the Middle East. Could I say that we've gotten a hook here, and I want to say what a privilege it is for me to spend this time with you. I want you to come to Washington to visit your money. It's very hard trying to do the Lord's work in the city of Satan, so I need all the help that you can provide me with. And I envy you in a way, but I also, most of all, applaud you as you embark in the next 4 years of the best times of your life. Enjoy it. Thank you, and God bless. Real quick.
Senator McCain, we have a small gift that's going to be for you, a memento of your visit to us, presented by two members of the class of 2010, Ben Smith and Kellen O'Gara.
Thank you, Father Joe. Senator McCain, on behalf of the class of 2010, we thank you for addressing us here tonight.
It is our hope that we, the class of 2010, can follow the example of civic responsibility and moral leadership that you have given us.
As an expression of our gratitude, we present you with this Boston College jersey.
May you remember this night fondly, as we surely will. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Are we done?
Shall we remain standing for the singing of the Alma Mater by Catherine Weiss, Boston Law School class of 2007, Arts and Sciences undergraduate 2004.